According to all known laws of nature, there is no way a bee should be able to talk. Its vocal cords are too small to get its fat little throat to produce any kind of word. The bee, in this movie, of course, talks anyway because art doesn't care what nature thinks is impossible.
I can't speak for everyone, but when I watched the Bee Movie as a child, I didn't think much of it. I didn't find it weird. For me, it looked just like any other generic animated movie, and when it became a meme, I found it kinda random. But when I watched it again as an adult, I started thinking, like, how is this even a real movie? What were the writers thinking? And then I thought the movie was kind of genius in, like, its humor and message. Maybe it was because I wasn't completely sober when I watched it, but I don't think that's the whole explanation. It's not really an accident the movie became a meme years later. There is something about it that feels shitposty when you watch it as an adult. Something ridiculous, something truly absurd. But what is that? Well, it's several reasons. It's all the right ingredients mixed in the right way that made this movie the perfect troll movie. Not that troll movie, but a movie that trolls the audience, other animated movies, real-life bees, and itself. We would have to start by the most obvious ingredient of the absurdity, the premise. In short, the movie is about Barry B. Benson, a bee who decides to sue the human race for stealing their honey, and together with him having this weird sort of romantic relationship with Vanessa, a human florist that cucks her boyfriend for a bee. Sort of. It's not actually a romantic relationship since it's mostly one-sided, but still.
You work through it like any emotion. Anger, jealousy, lust.
The premise is already absurd, and the thing most people use as to why the movie is absurd, but that's just a part of it. You can't just have a stupid premise to make your movie a genius of absurdity. I think the biggest ingredient of the absurdity in this movie is the subversion of expectations. And somehow that subversion applies to most of the things I'll talk about in this video. It subverts the expectations within the plot, it subverts the tropes it uses, and it subverts its own world rules. Let's start with the most obvious one, the plot. In the beginning of the movie, Barry's internal conflict is that he doesn't want to work the same job for the rest of his life. And we think that's what his internal conflict is gonna be about. But no. Because if the movie was about that, the plot would be too obvious. It would just become a pollen joke by the end. And the obvious journey would be him defying expectations and proving himself worth, or something like that. But no, the movie changes its plot, or Barry's wants 3 times. Barry changes his character motivation, basically 3 times. His first want is, in a nutshell, to be free just like the pollen jokes. His second want is that he wants to sue the human race. And his third want is that he wants to save the flowers after they all died. But it's not like he forgets his previous wants. They are all connected to the same theme of individualism and nonconformity. He wants to follow his own path, and so he becomes a pollen jock and a lawyer by the end. The lawyer part's something that nobody would guess by the beginning. The obvious ending would be Barry becoming just a pollen jock, but no, he became more than that, and his journey was even more unexpected. Now, something that I haven't seen anyone talk about is the way the Bee Movie uses the talking animal trope. In the beginning of the movie, we don't know bees can talk. We might think the bees aren't talking in English, it's just their language being translated. But when the bee general says this...
And a reminder for all you rookies, bee law number 1, absolutely no talking to humans.
By this point we know, okay, bees can talk. Later we find out other insects can talk too. And by the end of the movie we find out cows can talk. And from that I think we can assume that in this world all animals talk. And in English. On a surface level this might seem normal, but it's not. And to show you this, let's look into other animated movies, shall we? Usually when there's talking animals in media, there are several ways it could go. The first way is that their animal speech is merely being translated into the human language, and there are several human interactions to prove it. Some examples would be Ratatouille, Madagascar, A Secret Life of Pets, The Fox and the Hound, Lady and the Tramp, etc. The second way is that we can assume the animal speech is being translated, even though there aren't any humans present to prove it. Some examples would be The Lion King, A Bug's Life, and Shark Tale, and even the first Jungle Book, since we can assume Mowgli is speaking their language since he grew up with them. The third way is that the talking animal is an exception to the rule and can talk for some magical or scientific reason. Some examples would be the donkey from Shrek, the dogs from Up, and the turtles from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The fourth way is that there are no humans in this world and it's composed fully of talking animals. Some examples would be Zootopia, Kung Fu Panda, Robin Hood, Sing, and Bad Guys. And since there are no humans, whether their speech is being translated or not is unimportant. The fifth way is that the fact the animals are talking isn't even questioned by the human characters, and that's just accepted as part of the world. Some examples would be Space Jam and Pinocchio. There are probably more examples of it. Dora the Explorer comes to mind, but if I got into the realm of talking animals in animated shows, my research for this would be way bigger than a Google Sheets page. It's either all or nothing. The sixth and last way is the Bee Movie way. With that I mean that the animals can actually talk and hide it from humans for some reason. And believe it or not, I don't think there is any other movie that does this. A world where every animal in the world can talk but just chooses not to. At least not in any animated movie I could find. But animated shows aside, there is one movie that does just that. Sort of, and it's Toy Story. Except instead of talking animals, it's toys, which is even more absurd. But Toy Story doesn't feel absurd for one reason. I mean, there are several reasons, but the biggest one is that the toys don't interact with the humans. Mostly, at least. This movie is also just a big subversion of animated movies and their tropes, or better, a parody of them. That's not really new to DreamWorks, as they often like using other animated movies, often Disney and Pixar, for inspiration, and giving them different takes, either that be inspiration on an idea or style, a subversion on a trope, a straight-up parody, or just straight-up stealing. So, what is the Bee Movie a parody of? Well, it's a parody of animated movies in general, as we saw before. It's a parody of the romance trope, as we see with Vanessa and Barry, sort of. And it's a parody of musicals, or at least it was supposed to be before they cut off the Thinking Bee song.
That's Thinking Bee. Listen to me, fella, ain't you been on the tour? Kid, your stripes are black and yellow.
I just want to be sure.
But if I had to choose a specific movie, it will have to be Ratatouille. Why Ratatouille? Well, they both came out in the same year, 2007, only 4 months apart, and they're both animated movies about talking animals that focus on a specific animal species, in which the main character from that species doesn't fit into his own society and wants to leave the status quo, meeting a human who helps him do just that and succeeding in the end. Where they differ is on their level of absurdity. While Ratatouille takes itself pretty seriously for the most part, even in its most absurd moments, the Bee Movie thrives in showing off as much of the absurdity as it can. Ratatouille takes, for the most part, an expected trajectory. Remy wants to cook, Rat Society says he can't, Remy challenges society by cooking and faces the consequences. Remy meets a human who helps him cook, and that's mostly the plot of the movie. There is no subversion, it's an expected plot unlike the Bee Movie. While the rats in Ratatouille incorporate human-like traits, they don't actually talk. They can cook, but they can't talk. A rat cooking is not as crazy as a rat talking, but it's still pretty absurd. but still, the movie doesn't treat it as such. It acknowledges its absurd moments, but it's more subtle, not completely admitting to its absurdity like the Bee Movie. Another difference between the movies is the scale in which the movies happen. In Ratatouille, it's a more self-contained story. The only people who know Remy can cook are within a restaurant. The Bee Movie, though, has the whole world know about talking bees after the whole lawsuit thing. It's way bigger in scale, with way more questions with no answers being asked as you watch it. But even with a smaller scale, people's reactions to Remy are unrealistic. They accept the fact the rat is cooking rather quickly, because if their reactions were realistic, the movie would be completely different and way more absurd. The Bee Movie, though, makes a perfectly absurd mix of realism and absurdism in its dialogue and reactions. The Bee Movie is absurd, yes, but its reaction to the absurdity is the realistic part. Sort of. I think the best example I have to show is this scene where Barry first talks to Vanessa.
Hi. I'm sorry.
You're talking.
Yes, I know. I'm so
You're talking.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's fine. It's just, I know I'm dreaming, but I don't recall going to bed.
Well, I'm sure this is very disconcerting.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a surprise to me. I mean, you're a bee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am a bee, and, I'm not supposed to be doing this, but they were all trying to kill me, and if it wasn't for you, I mean, I had to thank you. It's the way I was raised.
Throughout the whole conversation, Barry's dialogue is casual, is the absurd, while Vanessa is freaking out. She is the reaction to the absurd. And the contrast of reactions is funny enough, but if we look into it, her reaction is pretty realistic for her situation. If you met a talking bee or even a rat who can cook and that understands what you say, would your reaction be more like Linguini or more like Vanessa? Well, I'm pretty sure most people would freak out like Vanessa, cause while Linguini basically just accepts it right away and just thinks on how this rat can help him cook, basically, Vanessa just gets freaked out by the situation, and that's where the human comes from, the realistic part.
Talking to a bee.
Anyway.
And the bee is talking to me.
I just want you to know that I'm grateful, and I'm gonna leave now.
Oh, wait. How did you learn to do that?
What?
That. The talking thing.
Oh, same way you did, I guess. Mama, Dada, honey, you pick it up.
That's very funny.
Yeah, bees are funny. If we didn't laugh, we'd cry with what we have to deal with.
Vanessa then offers Barry coffee while trying to act casual, just like Barry. But she's still freaking out, and this causes conflict, and she drops the coffee on the floor and even says she's not okay.
Anyway.
Can I, get you something?
Like what?
I don't know. I don't know. Coffee?
Well, I don't want to put you out unless you're making anyway.
Oh, it takes 2 minutes.
Really?
It's just coffee.
I hate to impose.
Don't be ridiculous.
Actually, I would love a cup.
Hey, you want a little rum cake?
I really
Have
shouldn't.
a little rum
No,
cake.
I can't.
Oh, come on.
I'm trying to lose a couple micrograms here.
Where?
Well, these stripes don't help.
You look great.
I don't know if you know anything about fashion. Are you all right?
No.
But fast forward to the next scene, she came to accept the absurd, and she's genuinely casually talking to a bee now. The reaction to the absurd being seen with the guy who came to change the light bulb. After that, she embraced the absurd and became part of it. And after this interaction, all the humans just accept talking bees is a thing now, not questioning much beyond that. Still, though, her reaction isn't fully realistic. Vanessa was freaking out, that's realistic, but when she questions the bee, she wouldn't just question the bee, she would question everything. Reality, her existence, her sanity, not just the bee. But this is the Bee Movie. Nothing else matters besides bees. We don't need to know how the other animals are adapting to the whole humans finding out animals talk deal, cause it's not the animal movie, it's the Bee Movie. And we can see that play out right before the movie even starts, with the DreamWorks logo. It was the first DreamWorks logo to replace the boy in the moon with a character from the movie, Barry the Bee, because it's not the Boy in the Moon movie, it's the Bee Movie. Of course, they started replacing the boy in the moon with other characters later on, but the Bee Movie was the first one to do that. I checked because I had a feeling that was the case, and I don't think that's a coincidence. But what is a bee? The bee represents what we are. It's our society and community, and Barry represents who we are as individuals. Barry has a hard time when it comes to the realization he has to do the same job for the rest of his life, and he wants to do something else other than what every other bee tells him is the right way. He's not thinking bee.
Thinking bee, get smart and start thinking bee.
Gee!
Meaning he's not living up to their expectations. He thinks things work too well around the hive, there is too much perfection, too much of a strict routine, and that doesn't sound very appealing to Barry. He wants freedom, cause a perfect society is good and all, but it can be boring. Barry questions his society, and throughout the movie, he represents the change of it, something that seems impossible to all the other bees. But Barry is still a bee. The bee also represents community. We see at the end of the movie the positive aspects of the bee community, and the thinking bee saying from the beginning became something positive instead of something repressive. The bees show both the good and the bad sides of society in that aspect. Right in the opening monologue, the bee is set up as a challenge to what's perceived as the natural order of things. The bees are a parallel to humanity, so as well as you can ask why does a bee fly, you can ask why is the human the only animal that talks? How did we build all these amazing and dangerous things that seemed impossible just 100 years ago? The movie is saying that even if it seems impossible, you can do anything. Just like bees flying or any new invention, there are always the ones saying it's impossible. But that's just their perception of reality. That's one of the main themes of this movie. The bee is also used to its highest potential with its humor. The obvious one would be the huge amount of bee puns throughout the movie.
I just hope she's bee-ish.
Honey is also used to its highest potential, being used for everything, including water, soap, mouthwash, hair gel, gasoline, and even saline solution, which is pretty stupid, but again, it doesn't matter. The humor is also very based around stupid things, mostly on the dialogue, but also physical humor. Some guy fighting Barry with a board pin being one of them, or just stuff like the fact that working the Krellman is the most useless job ever. Besides that, there's a big amount of bee references, but at the same time, the bees are parallel to the highly industrialized human society. They use clothes, they live in houses with stairs, they have cars, and they have several kinds of machinery in their honey factory, just like humans. Honey is also a parallel for money in this movie, if that wasn't obvious enough. And there's even a Bee Larry King, a Bee Columbus, a Bee Gandhi, and even a Bee Jesus, to be even more in your face about it. All the human parallels with the bees causes a bunch of contradictions, which this movie has a bunch of. So let's point out some of them, shall we? First contradiction. Their bee society moves fast, assuming because the average life of a bumblebee is 30 to 60 days, but that is contradicted by the fact that Barry decides to sue the human race, since court trials last a long time and we don't see Barry age at all throughout the movie. Second contradiction. The bees are as dumb as to confuse tennis balls with flowers and lamps with the sun, but they can still talk. Third contradiction. It's shown that bees talking is common knowledge, but by the end of the movie, the pilots are still freaking out that there are bees in the plane. Fourth contradiction. The fact they are all cousins, but are still reluctant to date each other because of that.
That girl was hot.
She's my cousin.
She is?
Yes, we're all cousins.
Right, you're right.
Fifth contradiction. The fact they have a queen bee that birthed all of them, but they still have parents.
Now, from what I understand, doesn't your queen give birth to all the bee children in the hives?
Yeah, but...
So those aren't even your real parents.
Usually all those contradictions would be seen as a flaw of the movie, but I think they work to its advantage. mostly because the movie is extremely self-aware. It knows it doesn't make sense and it calls itself out several times. It knows it's stupid and it plays along with its stupidity. It doesn't care about its lack of logic and it doesn't apologize for it. We can see that self-awareness the most from Ken. Ken is not just the guy who was cucked by a bee, but it can also be seen as the adult spectator of the movie. He says a lot of what the adult audience is thinking during his time on screen. He's the main self-awareness of the absurdity, basically.
Don't kill him!
You know I'm allergic to them. This thing could kill me.
Well, why does his life have any less value than yours?
Why does his life have any less value than mine? Is that your statement?
And having mostly the same reaction as the spectator if their girlfriend left him for a bee. As a child, we only see him as a normal, generic antagonist, but as an adult, he's the voice of reason, mostly. Except, Ken isn't normal either. He's a dramatic man-child that made his resume into a brochure and brags about winning an old lady at tennis.
You attack at the point of weakness.
But it was my grandmother, Ken. She's 81.
Honey, her backhand's a joke. I'm not gonna take advantage of that.
But the movie is aware of Ken's weird quirks, and that's subtly shown with the character of Bob. Who's Bob, you ask? It's this guy. He spends most of the time he's on screen mocking Ken, cause if Ken is the self-awareness of the bee absurdity, Bob is the self-awareness of Ken's absurdity. And just to prove to you even more that Ken is an absurd human being, there is a hidden conversation in this movie. One most people won't notice cause the volume was so low and it's mixed with Barry talking so loud.
Hey, check out my new resume. I made it into a fold-out brochure. You see? Folds out.
Oh no, more humans. I don't need this. Ow! What was that?
What's your point?
Maybe this time. Oh, James! That is diabolical.
It's fantastic. It's got all my special skills, even my top 10 favorite movies.
What's your number one? Star Wars?
Nah, don't go for that. Kinda stuff.
No wonder we're not supposed to talk to them. They're out of their minds.
When I walk out of a job interview, they're flabbergasted. They can't believe the things I say.
Can't
Oh,
really.
there's the sun. Maybe that's a way out.
Just say it.
I don't remember the sun having a big 75 on it.
Come on, Bob.
Oh!
I gotta tell you, I predicted global warming. I could feel it getting hotter. At first I thought it was just me.
By the context of this conversation, Ken talked about how he predicted global warming during a job interview. Bet you never noticed that before, you're welcome. Besides all the absurdity and the individualistic themes, something I wanted to mention is that the Bee Movie is also an allegory for capitalism. It's a cautionary tale on how capitalism is a necessary evil and about how well-intended social change can throw society into chaos. I'm not gonna go in depth about this here since it's not really the point of the video, and also cause you can just go watch that Wisecrack video about it if you want a more in-depth analysis, but that was just something I wanted to mention since for a movie with this much absurdity within it, it has a pretty interesting message. Another allegory that is somewhat similar to the Bee Movie in that aspect though is Animal Farm, which is a cautionary tale about communism. Just throwing that out there since that was one of the few books I ever read. But seriously though, those stories are pretty similar, both about an animal society which represents the lower class that is being mistreated by humans, the higher class, and revolts against them. In the beginning, everything is great, but then their newfound freedom soon becomes a less than ideal outcome. But while Animal Farm ends up with the animals staying oppressed, the Bee Movie has a more positive outcome. All the plants end up dying, but they fix it. Barry ends up meeting his initial goal, and the bees stop becoming honey-making slaves like before. They still make honey for humans, but I'm guessing they are rewarded for their efforts. Or at least they don't still live in apiaries, or whatever that's called, and aren't made to smoke gas to keep them in line. Of course, it's a children's movie, so it had to have a happy ending. But that just shows that not everything is black or white. We can change things for the better and adjust as the issues come along. So, in the end, it's a good thing Barry sued the human race. At the surface level, this movie might just seem generic, one you watch and forget. That's how I felt as a child, as I mentioned before. But it's much more than that. My interpretation is that the bees represent the absurd while the humans represent the perceived reality. The Bee movie is also reality depicting the absurd. It's humans, artists, depicting their perception of a bee, of course mixed with a lot of imagination. The bees can also represent art, while the humans represent reality. But reality is simply what we perceive. But what if what we perceive is wrong? Reality can be weird and absurd, and so does imagination, and so as the creations that come from it. Animals talking in itself is absurd, but we just came to accept it as a component of expression, as the reality of a lot of animated movies. After all, art doesn't have to be realistic, but the Bee movie took it to the next level, a completely absurd creation. A child's mind may not find the movie weird because of that fact. A child has a simplistic perception of reality and is full of imagination, and so doesn't see the movie as absurd. After all, it's just another movie with talking animals. There's nothing particularly weird or deep about that, right? The kids who watched the movie in 2007 grew up and watched the movie again, and only then realized how weird it was. That's again probably the main reason it became a meme. Art doesn't need to follow rules of logic or reality. That's one of the reasons it makes it great, and this movie pushed that to the limit. Realism is great, but it's not what dictates if a piece of art is good or not. And making a movie so absurd with so many unanswered questions and things you just can't wrap your head around, but at the same time, the way it adds it all to such a message is in its own way genius. I hope this video made sense and all. It was pretty hard to organize all my thoughts and all about this subject, but I hope I did good enough. My voice was kinda cracking. I don't know, like, I'm kinda improvising now. I'm not sure how to do the outro right now. I'm going with the flow. This is why I have a script, right? But, yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that. I like reading you guys' comments on the Sinbad videos. It was pretty nice. Hopefully I'll get used to, talking with a script or without a script. Right now I'm without a script and I'm just rambling. So I don't know if I'm gonna cut this out or not. But yeah, like, subscribe, all that. That's it. That's how it's gonna end the video. Hope you like it, comment what you thought and stuff. Yeah, bye.